We see that people are starting to roll in and we can get started. Before we get started with the actual presentation, we'll go through some housekeeping slides, but you're here today for the July 2025 Machado Engage Deep Dive, AI Ready Handoff, Auto-Summaries, and Draft Emails from MQL to Slack in one flow. To just some house rules here to ensure that the user groups stay user focused and a safe space for everybody. We ask for no self-promotion or pitching of any kind. Don't contact people outside of the user group without their consent. And then if user group members share their use case here, please don't share that information without their consent. This user group meeting is being recorded. If you have any questions or don't want to be recorded, you can just close the window. The recording will be provided after the event. If you have any questions, you can email them over to advocacy@adobe.com. Stay connected with the deep dive. If you're here, you probably are connected, but if you're not, you can go ahead and go over to mugs.machado.com, and there's a section for the deep dive mug. You'll need to connect it with your user account, but once you get signed up there, you'll get notified of any events that are in the future. And there is also a new Machado user group, Machado User Foundations. And the purpose of this mug is to bring together like-minded individuals who are starting out their Machado journey. There are going to be 5 sessions. There was one already, but they are recorded. So there are 5 sessions between now and the end of the year. So you can join the mug and sign up and get information for when those mugs are going to be held. If you have questions about the new email designer, there are bi-weekly office hours for folks who want to learn more. You can scan the QR codes, and there is a free course to help everybody learn the new email designer. So if you want to learn more about how to use the new features and functionalities, you can also scan the QR code that is on the right there. Discover Adobe user groups for Experience Cloud Solutions. So on Thursday, July 31st at 9 a.m. Pacific, there is going to be some information about what user groups are and how they support collaboration, problem solving, and skill building. If you want to scan to register for the event, go ahead. The QR code is down at the bottom, and it's open for everybody. And in 2025, the Skill Exchange is back. Registration is now open for the event in August. It's going to be spanning 2 weeks. There are events on August 13th and 14th. And then on August 20th, there's Machado Engage. And then on the 21st, there's Workfront. And it's a digital event. And the sessions run from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific time on those days. And Adobe is encouraging customers to review products in G2 and Trust Radius. So you can go ahead and scan if you want to share your experience with Machado. You can scan either of the 2 QR codes, either on the left or the right, to share your experience. And now that brings me to introductions for today's session. I'm Christiane Rodes, and I'm the Marketing Technology Director at CNA, and I'll be your moderator for today. And Lucas and Tyron, you want to introduce yourselves?
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Lucas. I'm the Director of AI and Automation at Revenue Pulse. We are an agency mostly focused on Marketo and marketing operations in general. This QR code is to my LinkedIn, so if you want to connect, feel free to scan it and connect, and we can have conversations afterwards. I'm also Brazilian, based in São Paulo, Brazil. So if you find my accent a bit weird, that's the reason. But right now, I'm enjoying a nice vacation time in Boston for July.
Lucas being modest when he says vacation, he's doing a 3-week AI course in Harvard. So he's a good expert to talk to about all things AI.
It's it's very nerdy to take vacations to study, but that's that's what I'm doing.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tyron. I'm the marketing operations manager at Telnyx, and I've been there for over 6 years now. But recently, I'd say in the past 1.5 years, I've transitioned away from being marketing ops manager and more into what I like to call like a RevOps AI engineer. I've spent a lot of my time in the past 1.5 years using the likes of OpenAI and their API to automate and kind of streamline a lot of processes at my company, specifically related to marketing operations. So I'm excited to share some of what I've learned with you guys here today.
All right, so we're going to start talking about the workflow to do MQL summarization, and the idea for this use case came from, I think, almost everyone here already is in that situation. You are sending your leads to sales, but they don't know how to start interacting with them, and they keep asking, "Oh, why did this person MQL? What did they do of interest that I should talk to them?" So this consumed the time of a lot of this consume a lot of our time as marketing operations in companies just to review activity log and try to address this question: why did this person MQL? And one thing that AI really excels in is reading unstructured data, reading an activity log, and understanding why this person is an interesting person. So the way that this workflow works is that it starts in Marketo with a webhook call. We are using Zapier here, but really it works with any iPaaS solution. It could be built in Workato, N8N, Power Automate, even Replit, anywhere that you prefer. So what happens in this workflow is that first you have to catch the webhook. You go this step by step. Then you have to format the datetime that you're going to be working with. Have to get a few important tokens, the access token and the paging token. With those, they can get the activities and then start using AI to summarize the MQL reason, post to Marketo and post to Slack. So all of that happens into your iPaaS solution. In our case, it will be Zapier, but as I said, it could be any. So you can pass the slide, Chris. Uh, all right, so as a trigger, they said there you have to build a webhook from Marketo, and you use a webhook trigger in Zapier. I just add one child kid in my webhook that is the lead ID that I'm going to be using as identifier. So you can see that we are not passing any personal information, just the lead ID, a number that has no real sense outside of Marketo, no real meaning outside of Marketo. And Zapier will give us a web URL that we then put into our webhook that you can see on the bottom left. And in the end of the URL, I add this question mark, ID equal lead ID, just to send the lead ID to Zapier, and it will catch that lead ID to the rest of the workflow. And you can pass the slides, please. Thank you. Then you have to format the datetime because this is a very important step actually, because you have to tell Marketo when you want to start extracting activities from. So you don't want to start extracting activities for a year ago because it will have already deleted a lot of those activities because the data retention policy is just 90 days for a lot of interesting activities. But it's also not very relevant for an MQL situation what a lead was doing a year ago. Mostly important what it was doing, I would say, I'd argue a month ago. So I I set the step just to format the datetime to 1 month ago, and we'll use that later. You can pass, please. And then we need to get two required tokens to get the activities. The first token is the access token. It's basically what grants you permission to do API calls with Marketo and uses this endpoint. Remember just to update this with your Munchkin code and the paging token. Paging token basically defines when you want to start pulling activity from. So you basically send, hey, I want to start pulling activity from 1 month ago. It will return a random string of characters, but it has some meaning to the Marketo backend that you then have to attach in the activities call to tell the backend of Marketo, okay, this is the day that I want to start pulling activity from. So, and you can never define the time frame. You cannot say, hey, I want from 1st of July to 15th of July. You can only define the start date, and the API will pull the start date until now. So that's a very important limitation. You have to focus on just setting a start date that is realistic, and it will pull it all until now. And to get the access token, it's not a especially hard call. You just have to you can see it just happens just after you format the datetime. You go and you get the access token. It is the URL that I said. It's a GET request. You have to set some query strings like the client credentials, the client ID, and the client secret. This all you get by creating an API user and a launch point service in Marketo. Not really the point of this presentation, so not digging deep on how to do it, but there are a lot of great resources online that explain how to get an API user, but you need that to get your access token. You can pass, please. And then you get the paging token. And as I said, you have to add here as a query string parameter, the since date time parameter that basically tells Marketo, hey, I want to pull activities starting from this date time. And now you see that in every call that we make, we add this header called authorization with the word better and the access token. This is what tells Marketo that we are allowed to make this this call. And every access token lasts just for an hour. This is not a problem in this case because this workflow is very short, so it won't take more than an hour to complete. But for longer applications, you have to be aware of that. And now with the paging token and the access token, you can start extracting the activities in this specific endpoint. Remember just to update your Munchkin ID there. One thing that is important about this endpoint is that you have to define which activity type IDs you want to extract. So every activity that you see in the activity log, like visit web page, fill out form, click link, or email delivered, email sent, email open, they have a specific ID in the Marketo backend that you cannot see in the front end. But to send this API request, you need to specify which of them you really want to extract. So these are a few that I usually recommend: visit web page, fill out form, click link, open email, click email, and program status updates. Uh, to see more, which more they you have in your Marketo, there is an API call that you can make that is not defined here, but usually it's not much different than this that you would be requesting. I just wanted to flag two important thing. One important thing actually is the program status update. It will return every time that you have an update in any program in any status. So if you're sending a lot of emails and updating status based on the email sent, you will have a lot of email sent status update that is not really useful because it's just that the email was sent. You don't get any information from this. So you might don't want to pull the 104 activity ID because it might return a lot of this email sent, email delivered type of things that doesn't really indicate engagement. It might be useful for things like industry events, content syndication, things that you only see via program status update. So I did there say don't use the 100 or 104, or if those channels are very important for you, add some type of filter to remove the program status updates that don't really matter, like email delivered and email sent, because they will be there and they might misdirect your your AI trying to summarize the reason why you violate MQL'd. Another limitation is that this endpoint just returns 300 activities per call. But if you're looking for an MQL reason, you probably don't want more than that. You don't want to be extracted. You won't be seeing more than 200 even activities that led to an MQL in the last month. But this might be a limitation, and you might need to loop through different activities to. You might need to loop through this API request to really see all the activities that led to the MQL. But I would say if you're hitting that 300 limit too many times, you are doing too wide data frame. So it would be better to get more recent activities than too many activities from a while ago. And you can pass. So this is how it looks. In the end, you have your get person activities URL with the lead ID that comes from the webhook call, the activity type IDs that we defined, the next page token that we got from the paging token that we talked about. And as always, you have to add your authorization, that is the access token. And you can pass. When you extract the activities, they look like this. So you have the lead ID, the activity date, the activity number. So we don't even have the exact description of what it is, and the program name. So a very hard file to understand really what is going on. And now we are going to use really AI to understand what is going on here. So we can pass Christiane. After you do that, you can send this activities to an OpenAI model or any other LLM of your choice. Here I'm using GPT-4o. Sending a prompt, explain that I'm sending the lead activities, and I want the AI to explain to me why how these activities contribute to this lead being marked as MQL. In the end, I always add that it will be only read by a salesperson, so don't use technical explanation, so just your best summary, and keep your response limited to 100 words, just because you don't want it to be a huge response. Sales won't read it if it's too big. You want to be direct, succinct, and relevant. Pass. And here's the prompt. So if you want later to copy and paste it or tweak it, that's how I do it. And thank you. And then the last part, almost the last part here, we update this MQL summary on the Marketo, because then it will also sync with your CRM, Salesforce or Dynamics, automatically in 5 minutes. So whenever someone is working on the lead, they will be able to see it. But we'll shortcut this part even, because they won't even need to see it in Salesforce, right, Tyron? They will be able to see that in Slack.
Yeah, you're right, Lucas. If things are the same way across a lot of companies, like I'm guessing they are, salespeople like to work at a Slack and kind of keep everything in one place. So I'm going to show you guys now how you can send this MQL summary to Slack, and also a draft version of an email that you might want to send to this lead, and allow the salesperson to update that draft before sending it to them. Um, Lucas, do you want to go through this last slide before you hand it over, or?
Absolutely. No, that's just very basic. I just thought it was a good hook there. Sorry. Uh, this is just a last code step in Zapier to update in Marketo using the leads endpoint. Very boring stuff here. Adding your, just sending to Marketo what you did. A few things that I like to flag. It's very important to add async processing to true when you're updating leads from Zapier, otherwise it will time out. And for most iPaaS solutions, this is true actually, because they have when they are executing code in their steps, they have a limit of time they can spend executing code. And Marketo sometimes takes a while to return your API calls. So if you don't add async processing as true, it will wait until Marketo returns, and this will take forever. But it's async processing is true; it will just keep going, and it won't wait Marketo to return. And here what you're sending is basically the lead ID, and you're sending the GPT response to the field that you define. In this case, the field that I'm defining is the field notes, and it will then sync to CRM. So now I'm handing over to Tyron finally. Oh no, I'm not yet. Sorry, I forgot this one. This is just an example result of one reason of why a lead would MQL. So explains that the lead shows strong interest in something that I redacted due to privacy of the client reasons, with multiple reasons to what, interactions, labels, blah, blah. So it explained exactly what the lead did, the frequent interactions, what are the industry specific solutions. So it really explains what were the actions that led to the MQLing. And there is a blog post about all of this. So if you want to read more and how to implement it, and we probably should do a part two in the future, Tyron, or maybe a link to yours with the Slack part, because that would be interesting.
Yeah, I plan on writing a blog post on the Slack interactivity I'm going to cover today, but it's been a busy July, so I haven't gotten to it yet. But hopefully, sometime this year or in the next few months, I might get to it. But as I kind of preluded to before, I'm going to walk you guys through how to create interactive messages within Slack. And the first thing you need to do is create a Slack app. And when these slides are sent out later on, I have the URL in the description of the slide below. So you can follow that URL to go to create your first Slack app. And you're going to click that big green button in the top right-hand corner and then go to the next slide. And then you get greeted with a pop-up window like this, and you're going to choose create it from scratch and then go to the next slide. And then you just give it a certain title, like I've just called it MQL Summarizer, and then you choose the workspace that you want this app to be in. And then next slide. Once you do that, you get greeted with this page which has all the configuration settings for your app. And at the bottom of this basic information, you can fill out more information about what the app is about. So if you go to the next slide, we'll see that you'll just name it. So in this case, at my company, we've got an AI persona called Quinn. He's like our AI salesperson. So you just give your app a name. You can give it a nice, cool image. And this is the image that will show up in Slack whenever a message is sent. And then you can just give it a short description and a long description if you want. So that's kind of the aesthetic appearance of your app in Slack. But to the more functional part of this now is if you want to enable interactivity with your Slack messages, and you'll see what I mean by interactivity in a moment, but this is basically if you want to have buttons associated with a Slack message which says, okay, send this draft email to the person, reject the lead, or edit the draft email. If you want to give someone those options within Slack to interact with the message, you need to enable interactivity here. So you turn the toggle to on, and then you need to specify a destination where all these interactive events will get sent from Slack. So in this case, I've got a Zapier webhook URL because we're going to use Zapier as kind of our iPass tool or our middleman to handle all the events coming from Slack. But equally, since vibe coding is becoming easier and easier nowadays with LLMs to be our kind of coding buddies, you could also have a platform like Replit, which hosts your Python code. So you could have Python code listening out for these Slack events too. And then you just put the URL of your hosted Python code in here too. So this is what I'll go more into this Slack setup a bit later on, but basically you'll have a Zap or again, your Python code in Replit, which is responsible for catching all these events from Slack, parsing the payload, and then you'll have different branches in your code or your Zapier workflow to deal with each of the options that your interactive Slack messages have. So as we'll see later on, if you want to just send the email, the draft email that was proposed by the MQL summary, it'll go down the send branch. If you want to reject the lead, you think they're SSL or disqualified, it'll go down that branch. Or if you want to edit the draft email before sending it, it'll go down the edit modal branch on the far left-hand side. And getting back to the configuration settings for a second, you need to make sure that your bot has these necessary scopes. So these just give it different permissions within Slack to be able to write messages into channels or to read different messages. So you'll configure all these settings in the bot token scopes. And then once you've done that, you'll be prompted to install the app. If you go into the OAuth section, install the app into your workspace, and then you'll get this bot user OAuth token. And it's a really long token. I've just kind of blanked out the latter half of it. And this is the token you'll use when you're making API requests to let Slack know you've got the necessary permission to be able to use this app and post messages in the workspace. So this is what you'll use within Zapier or your Python code when you want to use this app. Okay, next slide. So now that we've kind of configured our app, the way we're going to send a message is using Python code in step 8 here. So we've got the MQL summary, which we've just sent to Machado. And then we're going to have Python code, which uses the Slack API and that token I just showed you there to send the message to Slack as this bot user. So we'll see what that looks like now on the next slide. So it looks something like this. It'll be, hello, Tyron, this lead you own just MQL based on the following activity. And then it's just got the MQL summary right there. And then the next part of this is creating an interactive message. So what makes this more exciting is you can then send a follow-up message in the thread to say, this is the draft email we want to send to the lead. So in this case says, "Hi John, I saw you're displaying interest in the Telnyx IoT product. I want to see if I could help Bird Scooters scale with their IoT connectivity needs. What is your expected monthly usage in gigabytes to see if I can get you a volume discount?" So then your salesperson can see this, and then they have the option to either edit the draft email if they want to change some of the wording. They have the option to send it, which will then go back to Zapier, and then we'll send it using Gmail, for example, or you could use SalesLoft or Outlook, something like that, or they could reject it and the lead will be marked as disqualified or self-service. So the way you build this interactive message is that Slack provides something called a block kit builder, which actually makes it very easy. So you can see on the left-hand side, they've got all these different drag and drop options. Like if you want to insert plain text into the message, you can drag that in. If you want to put buttons in or an image into your message, you can drag those in too. So that makes it very easy to kind of visually design the message you want to send. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, I couldn't fit it all in one screenshot, but this is the left-hand side of the screen that you see. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, it also shows you basically the markdown or the kind of code that's used to generate that email. And if you want, you could also copy and paste in this text into an LLM and say, hey, this is the Slack template that I have, but I want to modify to do X, Y, or Z. I want 3 buttons instead of 2. I want 1 button to be green, 1 button to be red, 1 button to be orange. And then the LLM has enough knowledge of, the Slack block kit builder that it'll build the message for you. You can just paste the code from the LLM back in here. And then when you view the preview on the left-hand side, it'll be updated to be what you want. So you kind of have 2 options to build. You can use a drag and drop interface on the left-hand side, or you can modify the markdown here on the right-hand side, either manually or using an LLM to speed it up. So those are the 2 options to build your interactive Slack message. And then when you want to send that message, you're going to have to use Python code in order to send the message with those different interactive components, because Zapier it's got a Slack action, but that Slack action is very bare bones. It just allows you to send kind of like raw text in your Slack message. It doesn't have the ability for you to send all those interactive components. So we're going to use Python code to do that within Zapier. So that's what step 10 is here. We're going to have OpenAI generate a draft email from the MQL summary, and then we're going to send that in the thread using Python code. And then that's what appears here. And then if the salesperson, so say, for example, they realize that, hey, the lead's name isn't John, it's actually Lucas, and I know Lucas speaks Portuguese, and they want to modify the email, then they can click the edit button on the left-hand side. Okay, forward, go again. Yeah, keep going forward. So as I mentioned, we've got all these different branches. So if they click the edit modal on the left-hand side, that should cause a pop-up on the screen, which will look like this. And then the salesperson will have the option to modify the message. So here, as I mentioned, they realize it's Lucas instead of John they should be emailing, and the email should be in Portuguese instead of in English. And then if they hit send, that left-hand branch that I showed you in Zapier before, that will then send a new message in the thread. So if we go to the next slide. So basically we're in the left-hand branch of the Zap now. We're going to get the new email text that the salesperson just saved in Slack once they did the modification. And we're going to send that new message in the thread. So this is what it looks like. So now we're saying, hola, Lucas. We're saying the exact same thing, except we're saying in Portuguese now. And now the salesperson, they've reviewed it. They're happy with it. They can either click the send button, which I'm guessing they're going to do since they modified the email, but they still have the reject option if they want. So if they click the send option, we're going to go down the middle branch in the Zap here. And we're just going to extract the email text that was approved by the salesperson. And then we've just got a very simple step here, which is just a Gmail step to send the email on behalf of your salesperson to that lead. But you can use different apps here, like I mentioned, like if it's SalesLoft, Outlook, if you have a HubSpot action to send emails, you can use any one of those down here. And then the final option is they can reject the lead if they think it's, self-service or disqualified. And then, that can go down the right branch and it can update their status to self-service or disqualified. And you could have another pop-up for that where if they click reject, you can ask them to choose from a drop down of available options like self-service or disqualified. And then when they click one of those two options, that's what the status will get updated to here in step number 11. So there you are. That's how you can kind of tie these two things together, where Lucas showed you on the first half of it how you can extract all your Marketo data and analyze it with an LLM to get a nice, neat summary that you can then update on the lead in Marketo. And then to take it to the next step, if you want to further enable your sales team and make it quicker for them to reach out to prospective MQLs, then you can send that MQL summary in Slack with the proposed email in the thread and then allow the salesperson to modify the email to be sent. And then once they're happy with it, they can send the email right away at the push of a button, or they can reject it for a particular reason like self-service or disqualified. So I hope you found it useful. And if you have any questions for Lucas and I, we're very happy to answer them.
Okay, we have a couple questions in the chat. First one, Slack versus Teams integrations. Is this easily achievable using Microsoft Teams?
Define easily. I'd say that I completely agree with you, Zach, that Slack is much more integration friendly. It's like if you never build an app in Slack, say in half an hour, you can learn how to do a basic app and integrate a workflow in it. Not very complex. Teams, on the other hand, I think it is achievable, not easily, probably will require a lot of development efforts, but I never integrated with Teams directly, to be honest.
Yeah, neither have I. I've never scoped that out. I'd have to kind of talk to OpenAI or Claude to see how the two compare in terms of API integrations and how easy it is to do. I've only ever had experience with Slack, so I can't comment on how easy that would be with Microsoft.
And with the editing path, how does Zapier know how to use OpenAI ChatGPT again to translate the text into Portuguese?
So that was actually a human person. So when I showed that little pop-up with the edit there and the person had the option to edit it, that would actually be a real salesperson, where the salesperson has reviewed the first email, which says, "Hi, John, we see you're interested in IoT connectivity. How can we help?" They've saw that message in the Slack thread, but before they send it, they want to modify the message. So I just gave the example of, okay, the salesperson realizes that for some reason the names got mixed up and it should be Lucas instead of John, and Lucas is based in Brazil, so we need to translate the email to Portuguese instead. So the salesperson would be the one who writes "Hi Lucas" and then writes the email in Portuguese before clicking save. So that was like a manual step.
And Lucas already answered this, but for people that may have missed it, does this work with Workato too?
Yeah, this works with Workato and basically almost all iPaaS of your preference. So if you already have an iPaaS solution or even a hosting solution like Replit, you could use those. The challenge will differ depending on the iPaaS, the middleman that you have. Like Replit is very code heavy. Zapier is more straightforward. I would argue that Workato is even more straightforward than Zapier and has less limitations. Power Automate would also work, and 8N, whichever tool you prefer for this.
I think there don't seem to be any more questions in the chat. I think you answered everybody's questions through your presentation. But anything else either of you would like to share with the group?
Oh, Scott is asking how to find the YouTube channel. You know that, Christiane?
You should, so all attendees, just for everybody, all attendees should receive an email after the event. And then usually there is a YouTube channel, but then the video is also posted on the same mugs page. So after the event ends today, if you revisit the page, there should be kind of an embed that is available on the page as well.
The last thing that I would like to add before we finish, as always, whenever we do a technical deep dive like this, it can feel overwhelming to start trying things out. And it is actually very, very easy if you start trying and if you start building we have the blog post, we have all these resources here from this call. So you can take this as initial blueprint and start building. And when you start with the help of AI, with the help of these resources, you will find it much less overwhelming than you initially did. That I can promise you.
Spencer just posted another question in the chat. How did you get buy-in to get this process underway? Was it by showing the time to value was shortened with automation?
You want to answer that one, Tyron?
Well, for my company, I can speak instead of the MQL summary. Maybe Lucas can speak to that part. But
Yeah.
for me, when it came to Slack interactivity, the use case we had at my company, Telnyx, was we've got an AI SDR who emails people when they're MQL, and if it thinks they're SQL quality, it invites them to a meeting. But then we needed our AE managers to route that meeting to members of their sales team. So I'll show you. Let me share my screen. Can I share my screen? Okay, yeah. So for us, it was almost kind of needs driven, where we'd post a message like this on the right hand side to Slack, and then we'd post which are the free AEs who are available at the time. So in this case, we can see that Pete Christensen was the default AE we chose. And if the AE manager doesn't get back to us in time, that's the person who'll be selected to route this meeting to. But then we also see that Doigu and Luke are also free at this time. And then we allow the AE manager to come in and view this. And if they want to change the user who the meeting gets assigned to, so they could say, I want Doigu to be on, how do you spell Doigu? D-U-Y. If I want Doigu to be the owner of the meeting, they can select this. They can say they can proceed with the meeting. They can shorten the meeting if they think it's self-service, or they can cancel it and disqualify it. And then they can give a company fit reason why they think it's a great fit for the company or why they think it's disqualified. And then they can hit the submit button. And then we capture that in Zapier, and then we either proceed with the meeting and we route it to the salesperson, or we proceed with the meeting, we shorten the meeting to 15 minutes and route it to the salesperson, or we cancel the meeting because it was disqualified. So for me at Telnyx, the way we got permission, in a sense, was it was more on a needs basis, where our AE managers wanted to be able to route these meetings that were booked on the AI salesperson's calendar. And we thought that Slack was just a very good way for them, since they live out of Slack anyway, just to see all the meetings booked. And then all they have to do is just come in to the thread, see information about the person, like their company, their job title. There's usually a LinkedIn URL as well, sometimes the website. So then they can quickly come in and just route the meeting to the salesperson. So from my sense, it wasn't really permission. It's like we had a task to do, and we thought this was a very efficient way to solve the problem, and the AE managers liked it. So that's why we went with the Slack interactivity here.
On the MQL summarization, most clients that want to pursue this and how they get by internally is because they have a long time for sales to start interacting with the lead, and know that as the longest you take to send the first email to start that conversation, the worse are your conversion chances. So you actually lose money in this way, and you're also consuming more resources because many times sales has to review a lot of the leads, many times MOPS has to review a lot of the leads. So you're having an extra operational layer that could be easily automated with AI and making this process faster, resulting in better conversion rates.
All right. I think that is all from the questions in the chat. And again, everything will be sent out after the meeting today. And then it looks like people are looking forward to your blogs after the event as well.
Sorry for that, Tyron. I put some pressure on you now.
No, I need the pressure. I always enjoy writing them. It's just, they always take a while to write. I'll get around to it sometime. I want to make a Python for RevOps course first. So a lot of people listening might be interested in that, because I think nowadays it's easier and easier to write code when you have LLM as a buddy. So I want to make a course that kind of guides people through, like, where you go to write the code, where you can go to host your code, and how you can kind of use AI throughout as your coding partner to do that. So I kind of want to do that first, but then that might free me up for some more blog post writing after that.
Excited to check that out too.
All right, everyone. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your day or evening.
Thanks.
Thank you all. Have a good one.
See you.
Bye.